Just you bring up God, he's like, oh yeah, he doesn't exist.
No, I'll tell you.
He doesn't want to argue with it. He doesn't care. He's like, if you want to be crazy and go off and believe in him, that's cool. I'm going to sit over here and I'm not.
See, I won't even say crazy until you press me. I mean, I've had some people just back me in the corner and say, back when we were doing the Real Deal, there was one night when a guy came up and because I made some joke about Jesus, not even in a mean way. It's a joke any one of us could have said. But for some reason, he singled me out and he just said, I want to talk to you about this and I want to try to, it's pretty much a save your soul speech. And I was just like, hey man, there's nothing you can say right now that's going to make me change my mind. I mean, and then when he kept going on and on, I was like, you know what? You're a fucking nut. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why. You pressed me to the point where I got to back you in a corner now. So I will not call people crazy unless, and I just want people to know this. Yes, I'm probably the biggest atheist and most outspoken, but I will not call you crazy. I will just won't until you tell me to do it. And then I'll be like, okay, yeah, you're a fucking nut because you won't let me go get a fucking beer because you want to tell me how wrong I am. I'm going to burn in hell. But, no, I like that you're I mean, I like that it's all, we need a Jew here somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, see, you've got me here to cover like most everything. You guys need like a nerdy geek. You guys
need a Muslim.
Need a Christian. You need a Republican. It's like, let's lump it all into one guy who rides a scooter.
Well, let's turn Leon into a Muslim. Let's put a turban on his head. I mean, because we need a Jew, we need a Muslim here.
Yeah, let's see. Leon Obama. Yes.
I mean, this. I like the fact because I mean, I think all this time none of us have ever gotten into a fight about religion.
Well, no, we all know better. It's kind of like, you know, you guys know my history and I know your guys' history. It's all like, let's not. Now, me and Cyrus have when me and Cyrus used to live together, and you know
what? Nobody told me that. Oh, don't kid me. Come on.
No, me and Cyrus used to live together, and there were a few times where we got into arguments over religion, and it was never like it never started as a religious argument.
How did it get there?
You know, the big thing that was always a stick in our craw was he's a big fan of the flying spaghetti monster joke.
Yeah,
and I hate the flying spaghetti monster because it's a philosophical fallacy. I majored in philosophy in college, and when the flying spaghetti monster popped up, it's like, oh yeah, that's fallacy. This is why it doesn't work. This is taking an inverse of what Rene Descartes was doing, and you know, you start working around and dealing with the existentialism in it. And it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't work. It's a cute idea, but no, you're trying to argue it. No, it does work. And this, no, and then it's like you don't understand. There is no God. Wait, how do we? And then all of a sudden we're arguing about religion. And
so tell people what the flying spaghetti monster is.
Flying spaghetti monster is this. I don't want to get too much into it because I know I'm going to get email.
Well, you just got to explain to people who don't know. So that's all.
But essentially, you can look it up. It's essentially an argument that is based on an old argument by Rene Descartes. It's the inverse of what Rene Descartes was trying to prove. Rene Descartes, when he discovered "I think, therefore I am," he was trying to prove the existence of God mathematically, and in doing so, he wrote this proof, this theory. You know, like a mathematical proof that essentially went through and said, if I can conceive of a being that is all powerful and all knowing, part of being a perfect being like that is that he also exists. And so because I can conceive it, it must exist. And it was flawed. Yeah. Now, what the flying spaghetti monster is the inverse of that, which is if I can conceive of a big giant flying spaghetti monster, then clearly it must exist. And because a big flying giant spaghetti monster doesn't actually exist, thus God can't exist. And and I know I don't even, if anybody sends me email on this, I'm going to just send you the words "fuck you" because I don't want to talk about it. Because I get this. Me and Cyrus have argued at times. He's like, no. And he tries to explain it to me in various ways, and it all comes back around to the same problem that the flying spaghetti. It's just a cutesy argument thing, and it's a neat little thing to throw out, but.
See, I liked it better a while back when I thought it was just like a pizza restaurant, like Chuck E. Cheese.
See, you know what?
Spaghetti monster.
See, now that would, if somebody would actually make a flying spaghetti monster restaurant, that would be awesome because there, you know, you've taken this kind of internet joke and you've turned it into an Italian restaurant, and you know, and then you could throw in lots of jokes about, you know, well, we don't believe in tipping here. Or,
okay,
you know.
when we see a restaurant called the Flying Spaghetti Monster, we want our royalties, right?
We want our royalties. Yeah, but anyhow, so there's lots of stuff on it. You can read up on it. It's a fun little thing. Cyrus loves it, has it on his car, and we've had a couple arguments about the flying spaghetti monster. So,
y'all in there,
and I know
arguing over a flying spaghetti monster.
That motherfucker. That's not what the flying spaghetti monster. And he's gonna Hulk out, and I'm gonna get an email or a phone call, and.
How do y'all get into these arguments, man?
Because this is what we do for a living. I get paid to sit around and think about shit and then write about shit and then talk about shit. And that's pretty much what I do for a living. So when somebody says, no, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why, I have to tell them why they're wrong. And, and then it escalates.
Over the flying spaghetti monster. Meanwhile, the flying spaghetti monster's looking at you too like, these assholes.
No, it literally, I remember when we got into that argument because it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd just woken up. I was having my coffee, and I'm bopping around on the computer doing my morning search, and like that comes up, and I make an offhand comment, and it became a thing over nothing. It was like, what the hell?
And next thing you know, it's a big dirt cloud fighting across the room.
Dude, that argument lasted like an hour and a half. It was retarded.
That's when one of y'all say, I don't give a fuck anymore, and just walk off.
That's what happened.
You should have said, we're talking about the flying spaghetti monster, man. God damn. Y'all gonna argue over next Puff the Magic Dragon?
And that's why we don't live together anymore.
Because y'all gonna kill each other.
Sometimes, man. Sometimes.
It's gonna be both y'all two dead bodies on the ground with butter knives in your head. Bloody butter knives.
All right.
Well,
so let's move on to something somebody actually would like to hear about.
Well, I'll tell you what irritates me.
What?
The fact that they cannot make a Superman movie without Kevin Spacey. Not Kevin Spacey, but Lex Luthor. They're talking about doing another Superman movie, and yes, Lex Luthor will return. Not only Lex Luthor will return, but Kevin Spacey will return as Lex Luthor. And I don't buy anything yet. There've been so many permutations kicked around. They've kicked around the fact that they're going to do a complete reboot. Yeah.
They've kicked around that you look at what happened where they said they want to make a new Superman and they want it to be darker.
Yeah. Let me just read. I'll read what's going on right
here.
Go for
it. You do that, and I'm going to grab a glass.
Okay. The Belfast Telegraph. Kevin Spacey will once again transform into Superman's arch foe, Lex Luthor, in the next Superman film, tentatively titled Superman, the Man of Steel. Damn, that's creative. The news comes buried near the bottom of an interview with Spacey done by the Belfast Telegraph, I just told you about. The interview focuses on Spacey's career as a theatrical actor and his work as the artistic director of the Old Vic Theater. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But it does comment on the fact that Spacey will be returning to the role of Luthor in the follow-up to 2008's Superman Returns. What that means is that it's on the heels of the news that Warner Brothers is looking for a darker tone to the next film in the Superman franchise, and whether that is unclear or not. It is similarly uncertain if Brandon Routh, how do you say his name? Brandon Routh? Okay, if Brandon Routh, who played Superman / Clark Kent, our director Bryan Singer will be back. Why would Kevin Spacey be back if Bryan Singer won't be back? They need to just when you talk about reboots, do a reboot of Superman. Because I wasn't the hugest fan of that last movie, but they could do a whole lot better with a villain.
Well, first of all, I was a big fan of the last one, Superman Returns. I like it a lot. I think Lex Luthor's great. I think the problem is Lex Luthor's been the villain 4 out of the last 5 movies, and when he wasn't the villain, there was a giant supercomputer and
when he wasn't the villain, we had Richard Pryor.
It was really, that was, So,
and then we had, what was the guy, Nuclear Man, which that was one of the worst
Lex
movies.
Luthor was in that one.
Yeah, he was in that one.
Lex Luthor creates Nuclear Man in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
But doesn't Lex Luthor make like a small appearance in 3? Like a very, very small appearance?
I don't even remember. It was a movie so bad that I hated it as a kid.
Oh, it was terrible, yeah.
And I haven't watched it.
You remember watching that as a kid and you're thinking like, damn, why was that so bad? Richard Pryor was supposed to be cool in this movie.
Yeah, it was the movie. It wasn't quite as good as the toy. I remember that. So, no, first of all, this is the Belfast Telegraph. Keep in mind that a lot of these British papers love to print these rumors, and usually if there's a bad or a fake rumor out there, it came from a British paper. They're just infamous for it, especially with big news stuff like this. So take that with a big old grain of salt. Secondly, stop with Lex Luthor, please. I mean, from what I was hearing initially, the idea that's apparently been scuttled.
What, Brainiac?
No, actually, there was talk about Brainiac, but they were looking at Metallo.
See, why would they even do that? I mean,
because Metallo allows for a cool villain that's thoughtful, but is very physical. Because Brainiac doesn't throw down with Superman, but Metallo can.
But they could make Brainiac do that.
Robot throwing down with Superman in the middle of the city, that excites people at the studio.
See, I think just give people what they want at this point. I mean, Lex Luthor, you're right. Lex Luthor is his arch foe. Everybody knows that. It's like Batman's Joker. Okay, fine. But we've seen Lex Luthor in every fucking film, and there's such a cadre of villains out there that they could use for Superman. And everybody wants to see Brainiac, and they can do Brainiac, and they can make Brainiac a guy that he fights.
No, everybody doesn't want to see Brainiac. Hardcore Superman comic book fans want to see Brainiac.
And I think that's cool. I think Brainiac would be the logical choice. I mean, it's the majority of people who are out there saying, let's have another villain, are saying, man, okay, Brainiac, obvious choice. Let's have Brainiac. And if they, in fact, look, I'd agree with you. I'll take anything. Shit. I want to see Brainiac, but there's part of me that wants to see something else first, because every Superman movie we've seen is brain against brawn, brain against brawn. I want to see a Superman movie that's brawn against brawn. I want to see Superman fight somebody that can go toe-to-toe with him. Hell, I'd go for a Doomsday movie, even though Doomsday comes late in the thing. At least the Doomsday story, Doomsday fucks Superman up hard. Yeah, kills Superman pretty much. And when Superman came back, that was a good PR move. But look, I'll take Superman fighting the fucking evil shoebox if it's something different. I don't care anymore.
My big problem right now is this whole thing where they want to make darker superhero films. And it was one of those things that just showed me that they didn't know what was going on. Because at the time they wanted to pull back because they're like, look, the superhero movies are kind of cooling off. And they're not making as many superhero movies as they should be. And here they're about to – they had the big hit with Dark Knight, and all of a sudden everything changed. They're like, wait, if we make one good enough, people will come and see it over and over again. Some of these can be dark. The one that I'm looking forward to that's going to be dark is the Green Arrow Supermax movie they're working on. That looks badass.
I don't think they're making that, though. I mean,
well, they've written the script.
They've written the script, but I don't think that script's getting made. They've talked about that, and that's still just a rumor. The script is going around, and they say the script is great.
Yeah,
and the concept is great. Green Arrow. So he's in a maximum security prison where he has to fight all these villains to actually help him get out, who also want to kill him. Yeah. And we're talking about villains that people know, like the Joker's in there and whatnot. So I mean, they say that there's no way in hell that movie's going to get made, though.
I don't know. You know what? After all the money they made off Dark Knight, and with as dark a film as that is, I wouldn't doubt if it could get made. I mean, I don't know. What I'm saying is I want to see it.
I think it'd be a cool idea.
If you want to make a dark film and you want to make apparently the script's really good, and I would love to see that movie get made. But when it comes to Superman is not dark. That's the point to Superman. Look at what happened when they tried to make a dark Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man isn't dark. Spider-Man is light and fluffy. Superman is light and fluffy.
Yeah, I think they could have. Well, I think they could have made a darker Spider-Man movie. It was just a terrible script.
Well, they could have made one, but the audiences wouldn't have embraced it the same way. Some heroes are meant to be light and fluffy. Some heroes are meant to be really dark. Batman is a dark hero. It's got to be dark. That's why people embrace this film.
Now, Spider-Man, I agree. Spider-Man is something. They could have made a darker movie just to change the tone a little bit to fit something like Venom. When he got darker, they just made him goofy. So it wasn't even a dark movie. It was just a ridiculously goofy movie. I mean, once Peter Parker became dark, he was like, that's when he was jive walking and playing the piano. So they didn't succeed on that. I think the reason why everybody would like to see a dark Superman is because the whole joke is like, Superman is a Boy Scout, so I think it would be hard pressed in this time to make him as straight and narrow as he has his roots in.
The only way to do it is the way they used to do it in the past, which was World's Finest. Tell a World's Finest story. World's Finest,
like when he was with Batman, and
the World's Finest was Batman and Superman Adventures.
Yeah,
and it's and that's where you've got Batman doing the legwork and dealing with the darker aspects, while Superman's doing the heavy lifting and the fighting. And it was always great to see the dynamic between the two, because you've got this guy who you've got this Boy Scout versus this guy who's much darker, and he has his own code of ethics. Neither of them will kill. Neither of them, are dark, evil guys.
Yeah.
But Batman has, those kinks to him that, Superman just doesn't. And it was always interesting to see that dynamic. And if you want to tell a dark Superman story, go that way. But from what I understand, Christian Bale and Christian Bale has a long history of this. Christian Bale is very pure about the various things he does, and he apparently doesn't want anything to do with a crossover film.
Well, a Christian Bale Batman. I mean, look, I'm not going to say you get a script and you do something right. It could be done. I just don't see it being done right now with the kind of world that they created for Batman. I mean, it's so realistic to even have something like Superman in there, just being what he is, an alien from another planet. Just doesn't fit too well. I mean, Batman works as I've always said. The Batman we have now as a movie that is a graphic novel, stand on its own version of Batman.
That's what would make a world's finest movie interesting. Having established this, this is what I think the series needs, because we have established this very realistic, very gritty world for Batman. What happens to that world when an alien from another planet shows up wearing the red, white, and blue to save the world?
Well, see, we have a whole other problem of having to set up another Superman story that will actually coincide with the world that they created in that Batman. Look, if you want me for a Superman movie, really, first step, just try another villain. That's your first major step right there.
Yeah.
I think that they could just, if they want to make it darker, you have Superman in a world that is not as pure as his ideals are. I mean, he's in a city full of crime. He's in a world full of terror. I mean, he can't do it. He can't be in all places at the same time, and people want him to solve the world's problems. He has to deal with all that kind of shit, and he just can't do it. Not even either. He has to sink to some level that he doesn't want to, or he has to be more than even Superman can't solve the world's problems. And
that's what the last film was really about. I mean, there's that whole great thing of him going up into space and listening and realizing he can't be in all places at once.
Yeah, after a really sappy love story, though, that just didn't seem to work with a lot of people.
Oh, I love that movie.
Look, I was so happy to see Superman back, but I was bored to tears by that film. I know it has its fans,
and I am one of them.
I am not. Like I said, I'm not here to argue with people about if they like the movie. I'm just telling you what I think. And I think that franchise needs. You're going to reboot the Hulk, reboot Superman, but you got to be careful because we saw what happened with the Hulk. So,
although I think, did you get to see Zach and Miri make a porno?
Yeah, I did.
How great was Brandon Routh in that?
I didn't think he was great. I thought he was just.
I thought he was hilarious.
You know why I didn't think he was great? Because he was overshadowed by Justin Long, who was
But that was what was so. But that's what's so great about that dynamic is you have this guy.
He wasn't bad. He showed that he's an actor and he can do other things. But I didn't think he was. I didn't think he stood out.
What stood out for me in particular was there was that whole big thing about him being gay. And being the gay Superman, which he's very not. I mean, the thing, he's not gay, but so for him to go and for his next role to be, playing, the big hunky stud from high school that turns out to be gay and is the boyfriend of a gay porn star played by Justin Long, that was pretty fucking hilarious to me. I thought that was awesome. I'm not thinking that he gave the performance of a lifetime. I just thought that was a great choice, and I thought it was very cool for the guy who played Superman to go on and play the gay guy from high school who's having sex with a porn star.
See, Justin Long to me just had me cracking up, and I didn't even like the movie that much. But Justin Long I thought was great in that role, and he had me laughing so hard, man. He was the gay porn star.
Dude, I've been a Justin Long fan for years. He is freaking hilarious, and he was so good in that role. He just he stole the show in those scenes that he was in.
Yeah, no, he definitely did.
So.
Well, hey, it's going on almost an hour. You want to get into? I have a couple of emails here.
Well, let's do some emails real quick.
Okay, one of them is actually a comment that was on my page that I thought would be a great email question, and it says, "Everyone hated the disaster movie." I don't know why you call it the disaster movie, but yeah, everyone hated disaster movie. My hatred, however, turned into fear. What if this movie is so bad, that it would become good? I mean, for example, Plan 9 from Outer Space was shit. This movie is shit too. What if the disaster movie, attained some kind of quality of success, he puts that in quotations, as Plan 9? What if this becomes so bad that it becomes cult? And this is from Sergeant Osiris. And I will tell you this, my take on this real quick and real simple. Plan 9 from Outer Space was a movie that was trying to be serious, at least semi-serious, and its charm is that lies in that it was a movie that was struggling to be such a good movie and was not, and therefore became an unintentional comedy and became a cult classic naturally on its own. Disaster movie makes so many pop culture references that are dear to our time, and it's so smug in thinking that it is a funny movie when it is not. There is no way that this will become a cult film, except for the fact that people will recognize this is not how movies should be made.
Yeah, this is no. The thing is that Plan 9 from Outer Space. There's a certain truth to what you're talking about here, but Plan 9 from Outer Space is known as a cult classic only because in the late 70s, a bunch of directors got around and they were polled as to who was the best director in Hollywood and who was the worst. And everybody knew, Ed Wood was this famous guy who was always trying to make movies and was always failing, and everybody knew him, and he was that legendary, terrible director he made these films that were so mind-numbingly awful, like Glenn or Glenda and Plan 9 from Outer Space, and who the fuck was this guy, to where people started talking up the films about how bad they were, and they became legendary as the worst films ever made. He was nominated for the award, and worst director ever.
He had that title for years.
Yeah, and so that's why that film has cult status. These films are going to go down in history as the worst films of their time.
Yeah.
They're just terrible films. But the thing about Ed Wood is Ed Wood was insane. He actually believed he was making good movies.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think these two actually think they're making good movies.
No.
From what I've been told in emails, they kind of do, but they're not that level of crazy where everyone's like, oh my God, these guys they're just doing their thing, and they're kind of like, well, fuck you if you don't get it.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I'm lost now. I've read things where they said, they think that they're making actually funny movies, and I've heard things where they said, no, we're just in it for the buck, and we're gonna ride this out as long as we can. Ed Wood. If you watch Tim Burton's movie Ed Wood, it's exaggerated. It's pretty much a comedy, but there is some truth to that. Ed Wood was actually trying to make movies. He wanted to be a director. And
if you've ever seen like his final film, Take It Out and Trade. The guy really was out of his fucking mind. As much as that movie was probably a bit exaggerated, I don't think it's that exaggerated. The guy really was fucking insane.
Well, I mean, the movie's played up as a comedy. I mean, but Ed Wood's story is kind of magical and tragic at the same time. I mean, it's a guy who had a dream, ended up becoming known for his dream, but in so many of the wrong ways. And watch Plan 9 from Outer Space, because that movie...
Or don't.
People should. Don't watch... what was that movie where it starts out? Glenn and Glenda is bad. I watched it. It's
boring.
It's boring. Exactly. Isn't that the one where it starts out with "pull the string" and then show the buffalo over?
Pull the strings.
Yeah. That movie is bad. But Plan 9 from Outer Space, for a little while, you think you're actually watching a comedy, and you realize no, these people are really acting.
This movie is about the future, which is important because it is a place one day that both you and I shall live. And it's like, that's genius, except that they were serious.
Yeah, I love that line where the guy sounds like he's actually in the comments like, you Earth people, you're all stupid. And you're like, hey, this guy's funny. And you're like, no, he's really trying to do some acting here. So, it's the disaster movie will never be the level of unintentional genius that Ed Wood movies were.
No. So, next question.
Yeah, okay. So, let's see.
I got
it right here. Kind of long, but... So, do you think that we're smarter as an audience? No, I don't know. Do you think that the comedians in black and white movies were just better comedians than the ones we have today? And he puts a link to something here. I didn't go to it yet. And he's talking about people like... it's funny, he lists the Three Stooges first. Abbott and Costello, Victor Borg, Marx Brothers... let's not forget the silent people if you're going to talk about black and white comedies. Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. Were they better comedians, or as an audience, were we expected just to be more educated and catch most of their jokes and references? He says, personally, I think that we were dealing with better comedians back then, and that there were multiple aspects to their comedy. So what's your take on it? Go ahead.
It's kind of hard since I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, but I think no, it's not that people were smarter then or that they were better comedians then. It was times were different.
It's a different language of film.
Well, comedy is a weird thing. Comedy has evolved over time. What one generation finds funny, another doesn't, and it goes in cycles. But the thing is at that time, there were a lot of things you couldn't say in public. There were a lot of things you weren't allowed to say. But things always happen. Since the beginning of time, people have been having sex. And since the beginning of time, people have found it funny to comment about having sex. But how we live in a day and age where in a podcast, two guys sitting in a room can say the word fuck. We could say
what?
We could say fuck. We could say we were fucking. We've made sex jokes all throughout this thing.
Don't tell people that we were fucking. Somebody might believe that.
We could say we were fucking. We could even be fucking, for Christ's sake.
As long as you didn't see it.
Even if you saw it, then it would be the internet, wouldn't it?
Awesome. Come the pictures.
So no, but it's one of those things where we can do that. In the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, they couldn't do that. So a lot of these jokes had to be much more subtle. They had to be clever. Also keep in mind that the people who are making films, it was a time where not everyone was educated, but these people were educated. And that was what was high-minded at the time, was making these subtle, clever jokes.
Yeah.
And that's what was popular as well. People loved wordplay. Now wordplay isn't as popular. Right now, it's very easy to tell jokes and be crass and be straight up about what you're doing. In fact, you have to really push the envelope to be funny now. You have to really be cutting edge. You look at what the South Park guys have been doing and how 10 years ago people are like, this is gross, this is stupid. Now those two are considered geniuses.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where comedy is just, it's very weird. I was listening to a comedy album the other day, Hello Dummy by Don Rickles, a 1968 album that I love listening to because Don Rickles is, he's one of those comedy geniuses. But it was so offensive to me because in the first 5 minutes, he jokes about pretty much every race known to man.
Yeah, that's what he's known for. He gets that out the way.
But yeah, done in a way where he's doing the Mexican voices and he's like, I love you Mexicans. Without you, we would never have filth. You guys stay in your mud homes and you make mud on the floor and I love it. You're filth. And it's like, wow, this guy's, he was making me uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's what, and you're right. It's we've had to push the envelope today, but let's keep in mind that back then, like I said, it's a different language of film. At the time, it was a different period for people. A lot of your comedies and a lot of your comedians were coming out of vaudeville. Now combine that with the language of film that you have, and when I say about language of film, we used to have fast cuts. We're used to having things edited very quickly. Back then, we had shots upon shots of the long take.
Oh yeah.
And so you had these vaudevillians who came out of being stage performers, having an act of banter, and then they would do this on film. And you would have probably about a 5-10 minute scene that would just go on with the Marx Brothers were, I won't say notorious, but this was one of their trademarks. They would put they would put on stage or in front of a camera with each other, and they would just go back and forth with these jokes. And they wouldn't cut. And they would do pretty much a stage act. So, and given the limitations that you mentioned, they couldn't say fuck. They couldn't talk about sex. They were forced to be just a little more clever. And that humor worked for that time. Now, as things have evolved, we're able to say more, we're able to push the envelope more. So therefore, and we also have a shorter attention span thanks to the quick cuts. And nobody's off of vaudeville anymore.
Well,
vaudeville is gone. Yeah. And things like YouTube. We have a whole different kind of stage act other than vaudeville. We have the dirty comedians now on stage, people who get to say political stuff. They're comedians who change the way we look at the world. They're educators now. So yeah, it's not that they were better. It's just that nobody's better now. Nobody's better back then. Styles change and people do what they do with their limitations and with their resources.
And with the times.
The times. Yeah.
There's a lot of, if you go back and try to discover some of these older comedians, a lot of kids today, they're like, I don't find what's so funny about Richard Pryor. He's just swearing a lot. Big whoop. But back at the time, that was a big whoop.
Yeah.
The first time you heard a Richard Pryor record, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, this monkey's fucking my ear. You're like, ah. But yeah, and also keep in mind that some of your other people who were doing silent movies were also doing bigger and broader and better things than people do today. Why? Because we have CG effects and stuntman. Back then, that was a silent days of film where stuntmen weren't as big and comedians had to do it on their own. So yeah, I mean, it's not that anyone's really better, just a different style. So that's it for me, man. That's it for my intelligent talk right there. Now I got to get crazy. No, it's that's all the email I have. So
well, all right. Well, I think that's a good point to call it a night. So.
Hey, man, it actually came right about an hour.
All right,
which is what we said we're going to do.
Well, you know what that means.
What does that mean?
Good night, everybody.
Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.